and literally building a wall around your house, and then you're stuck in there. I was like, well, he's like, of course, well, that's not going to happen. I was like, I mean, says you.
Yeah.
It's all up for grabs. You're basically giving way to a modern day feudalism, if you ask me.
No, I think and this was something that I had come up with independently before I ended up getting to Lefty Circles, and thought that I was coming up with like an original concept of that. Like, yeah, of course, libertarianism would just devolve into feudalism. And then no, it turns out every leftist in the world has pointed that out. And then,
this is a similar story that is just funny. I was messing around on my acoustic the other day.
Sure.
And I just played out some chords, and I was like, man, this sounds really good. It's dark, it's deep. Turns out it was Nutshell by Alice in Chains.
There's no original ideas, man. No original ideas.
I wrote a completely unoriginal.
Libertarianism is just feudalism.
It really is.
It all comes in circles. Police will become the new knights.
Yeah. Well, they kind of already are.
Yeah, they're class traders. They're working class people who work to oppress the working class. Yeah, no, it's real, just a bummer, dude.
It's a buzzkill.
Just
you're talking. I know we talked last time about like how electoral politics takes too long.
Yeah, well, and we can get into a little bit of that too.
Later. Yeah.
But I mean, you saw what they did in Kentucky when they closed 95% of their polling places.
Yeah,
like they can just do that
under the guise of COVID. Trying to keep people from getting COVID.
That doesn't even make sense, because then you're like condensing people.
What really kind of bummed me
out.
I know we said we weren't going to try to do this anymore. Harm reduction and all that. But what really kind of bummed me out was I didn't really see. You saw the people playing platitude, like, our democracy is important and all that good stuff. But, like, I didn't really see Joe Biden, who was so adamant about people getting out and voting in Minnesota and all that. Mm-hmm. I really didn't see him say a whole lot, and maybe I just missed it.
Joe Biden, his best strategy, and this is what won him the fucking primary, is to just be invisible. Just be as hands off as possible, because the second he gets into the public eye, he's gonna say something wild like, you're not black if you don't vote for me, or just
yeah,
some other ridiculously goofy thing. Just let Trump tank himself.
Beat himself. I understand that. That's why I didn't want to bring it up, but I had to.
No. It's very clear that Joe Biden is not a leader in any capacity.
We haven't talked about this in a minute. What's the current standing in VP picks? I know there hasn't been a decision made, but I know they vetted a bunch of people.
Honestly, asked me a couple weeks ago, I was like, it's gonna be Amy Klobuchar, like 100%. And then she just dropped out recently.
Yeah.
And honestly, if this George Floyd thing never happened, she would not have dropped out.
Yeah.
It's because when she was district attorney, she had the opportunity to prosecute the Derek Chauvin because he also had murdered somebody prior.
Yep.
And it was up to Amy Klobuchar, and she didn't do it. So in an attempt to kind of get ahead of that, I'm sure the Biden campaign told her that they weren't going to pick her, and then they allowed her the opportunity to save face and go out there and say, like, oh, he needs to pick a woman of color. But I don't think that she actually... I think that she wasn't going to get picked. I don't think that she was graciously bowing down. Mm-hmm. So now I think it's going to be Kamala Harris.
That was kind of what I was leaning towards, I think. Yeah, we're on.
Oh, okay.
It came back on like within... Ooh, Grimla. I know that guy.
Oh, cool. It's going to be Kamala Harris. And it's going to be
I agree too.
Funny because... like, she was attacking him on the whole busing thing.
It hurts. It causes me physical pain.
And then
about it legitimately does. It bothers me.
And then it's gonna be like, oh yeah, no bad blood. We're all friends.
That was just locker room talk.
You know how locker rooms talk.
They're the worst. That's kind of what I was thinking too. I think I've seen a lot of people throw around Susan Rice.
Yeah, I've heard a little bit about her too.
How I feel about that.
Stacey Abrams,
I don't think
but I think she's done. I don't know if you saw that, like, I don't know if it was Joe Biden being like mean, but like called like a news conference and then like invited Stacey Abrams on and didn't tell her like what it was about and didn't even tell like the news station what it was about. So then everybody thought that he was going to announce that she was the VP pick.
I did see that. I don't even know.
And then he just invited her on to say, "Hey, thanks for doing everything you do." And it was like, "What?"
Yeah, because she started what is her organization called? Good Lord. Why can't I remember anything? It's not Move On.
Oh no, yeah, it
is.
I think it is. It's
is
the
it
one like to stop voter suppression.
Combat voter suppression.
But yeah, essentially, everyone thought that it was gonna be like an announcement for VP, and instead he just went like, "Hey, thanks," and like it was like, well, "What did you call a news conference for this?" So I don't think she's in the running anymore. I think right now, my money's on Kamala Harris. Which is like she's also a cop in the middle of this.
I saw something nuts earlier today. It was just a crappy op-ed. I don't even remember where it was, but they were talking about how if Biden really wants to secure the nom, he should do a unity ticket with George W.
Oh God.
Yeah, and not only did I suffer a seizure, but I was just like, you got to be kidding me. Is this where we're at right now? Like, are we that desperate?
He did say that on the campaign trail that he would consider a Republican VP.
Yep.
And then liberals seem to be fawning all over George Bush just because they have such our fucking amnesia-ridden country has such short memories.
Can't remember more than like a week. I was
talking
to somebody
that they think
about this.
like, oh, he's better than Trump. It's like I think if in terms of actual damage, I think that George Bush might have been worse than Trump.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The only reason that you can say that, though, because I discuss this all the time with people, is only because Donald Trump really hasn't been able to push any real major legislation through. Like,
because he's incompetent.
Yep, 100%. Which, on a side note, always drove me nuts when people like who supported Warren were like, Warren is who you pick if you like Bernie's platform but want to get it actually passed. I'm like, that makes no sense. That makes zero sense at all. But, we don't need to get into that.
Well, the idea of like, would Bernie have been able to get even half of his platform passed? Probably not. I'm not.
No.
I have no illusions about that. But the idea is to drag the Overton window back to the left a little bit.
So this is I don't know if we got into this one a lot at all because I wanted to. There's two things here because I was talking to somebody actually earlier today. Mm-hmm. They were saying I wish these protests would stop, not from like a point of like racial hate or anything. It was more like it's people are putting themselves in danger for this, and I said I very wholesomely disagree. Because number one, it's the only way to get anything done. But this goes to a deeper problem, too, because of what you just said about being short-sighted amnesiacs.
Yeah.
I said if the protests stop now, in 5 months, whatever November is, July, August, September, October. Okay, good. In 5 months, when Joe Biden, if he wins, we will forget any of this ever happened, and we'll be back to square zero. You've given up everything,
but
goes into my next point I wanted to make real quick, talking about like defunding the police hashtag, because I'm starting to see like people like Rogan and stuff comment on it and how like it's a bad idea, blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
but no, I disagree again because number one, if you say that without actually knowing what it is, that's a sign to me. Like when people say that it's a terrible idea.
The idea is that they think it's abolish the police, which I'm for, but that's not what the movement is.
And for what I'm about to say, both phrases actually work really well. And this actually ties back to what I was saying about the Warren thing and getting things done. When you say something like defund the police, you are forcing a conversation, and that becomes a form of social negotiation, right? Mm-hmm. When you say something like reform the police or fund better, you're not actually
Yeah.
negotiating anything, and you're not getting anything out of that.
And
Does
of,
that
and
make
of
sense?
course, if you ever, they always have these conversations. Like, I've seen a few on the news where they're like, what would you like to see, officer? Like, what do you think would change? And they're like, more training. And it's like, immediately their idea is to fund them more.
Yeah, give
Is what
them
they
more
want.
money.
Is they want more money and more equipment. And it's like,
It's like, that's not the problem here. The barrier of
yeah,
entry is
if
too low.
so if we talk about like reform the police, that's the kind of reform
Yeah,
we're
well,
going to
that's how
be. That's
you
the kind of
get-
reform we're going to be getting.
That's how you get either bill that came out of the House or Senate, which I have, admittedly, I haven't done a deep dive on to see what's actually in them. But from my overall base view, looks like they're really not much of anything, including Trump's executive order.
Oh, Trump's
They're-
executive order is not. It's nothing.
yeah,
it's nothing.
yeah, it's
like
nothing.
we're gonna ban chokeholds unless the officer's life is in danger. Where it's like I think that was already the rule.
Yeah, well,
But
it's supposed
also,
to be the rule.
but also just like you just gotta. It's just your word against theirs of like, oh, my life was in danger. That's really. Cops can get away with murder if they say anything other than, yeah, I just killed him because I wanted to. I think anything other than that, a cop is going to get away with it.
Yeah.
As long as he says, I was scared for my life. There's video after video of cops shouting, don't resist to people that they're beating when they're not
laying
resisting,
there like, dead
so
on the
that
ground.
like when the police report is filed, they can be like, oh yeah, I said don't resist. I said to stop. I gave him warnings to stop resisting before I beat him down.
tried to tell him to stop. It's like the kid or guy in the Arizona hallway, crawl towards me, cross your legs, crawl towards me.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
one.
that's the Daniel Schaefer. Is
Yeah,
that I believe
need
is his
to-
name?
This is how bad it is.
Is
Guys,
that-
there are so many
There's
names.
just so many, and
I
it's
can't.
it's the funniest thing. It's not funny. I guess it's depressing is probably the better word. It's macabre to think about.
Daniel Shaver.
the-
That's correct.
The posts that are made to discredit Black Lives Matter, where they go like, hey, look at this white person who was horribly murdered by the police.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, and it's like, well, are you cool with that?
Yeah.
Like start a movement then. Like
Yeah,
go
that's-
out in the streets and go protest because that's a horrible case
it's like-
of police brutality. Black Lives Matter actually does bring up a lot of these white people that are killed by police officers more than any white person does.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, yeah, I'm sorry that black people are the only ones with any fucking dignity left in this country.
And then it drives me nuts too, like when people are like, well, more white people are killed by the police every year. It's like, okay, nobody's disputing that. Like that is true in the sense that there are more white people.
It is statistics without context,
But-
which are pointless.
Yes. Proportionately, black people are killed at a rate 2 times higher than that of white people, and that is the problem.
Yeah. Proportionally, Native Americans are actually killed the most.
That is correct.
Yeah.
They also suffer the highest instances of like people traffic drugs through their lands and stuff like that. It's really bad.
Yeah.
And a lot of the laws are written in a way that the tribes have no legal recourse. Like they can't like defend like state police can't help them if they not that they would anyways, but yeah, that's a whole. We should do a whole video on that or a whole podcast. That'd be a fantastic subject to get
Yeah.
into. As much as I'm qualified to talk about that.
But yeah, the idea.
So, anyways, sorry.
Negotiating, you don't start from the middle. You don't start already capitulating to their demands. It's like, you see something is for sale for $5,000. You want to spend $4,000 on it. You don't show up to the negotiation like, hey, I want $4,000 for
Hey,
this. Like,
your
no,
Toyota-
you start at like 3,000,
Your Toyota
and then they
Camry
counter. Yeah,
has a small dent on the hood. I think we should start at $49.50.
yeah, exactly.
And
Like
then,
you don't.
The guy's like, okay.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
you get inside and you're like, well, I think there was some smoke damage inside. I think we should go down. It's like you've already agreed. To
Yeah,
another price.
you now have set the limit there, and that's why the Overton window was dragged so far to the right. So, yeah, you can't just show up having already conceded. That's why I didn't like Warren. I mean that among a lot of other things.
I need to go back and listen to our first podcast. I know I hit that so hard, and I just wanted to know. Like,
I think I at the very beginning I had Warren. I think at my number 3 or 4.
yeah,
And then she was my number 2 of like the ones I thought had a chance. That has plummeted. That has plummeted. My opinion of Warren is bottom of the barrel now.
her Republican nature, unfortunately, and I use that term loosely because a lot of them stand for the same things anymore, has really come to a head.
But I guess that goes down to like where is Elizabeth Warren's place in sort of like the metric of how we judge a politician? Like, where is she? Like, because I think she's better than like Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah,
you know,
I think that's true.
I think she's better than a lot of Democrats. I guess my dislike of her just comes to her betrayal, really.
Yeah,
of
like
left values. How quickly
before-
she was able to just like give up on them.
Yeah.
You know.
Before we get into this first break, I mean, it's just like, you know, she made her big shtick in the progressive world as being anti-bank or anti-financial, and then completely 180'd on it when the opportunity arose, like with the stimulus package and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, we're coming up to our break.
Yeah, let me
So.
hit this real quick.
Bam. All right. Hey, thank you to everyone viewing the podcast. Feel free to talk in the chat. We'll answer questions, interact.
Yeah, in between, we record these in segments because it's easier to get it into the podcast this way.
But yeah, I mean, I don't mind even having discussions that make it onto the podcast. But you know,
Yeah,
if anyone has anything to say,
feel free.
eventually we're gonna do a call-in show once we get the technology to do so.
We have the technology.
We do, but
Just don't know how to operate it. I was trying to make a $6 Million Man reference, and just
we have the
didn't.
technology, but we don't want to spend a lot of money.
Listen, I'm very tired.
You remember that Family Guy where he did that? We have the technology, but we don't want to spend a lot of money. It was like the $600,000 man.
Oh yeah, that's
And
right.
he had like a trash can for a leg, like a rake for an arm.
Yeah, it's very true too. All right, boom. Nope. Boom.
And we're
That's weird.
back.
It's weird that I had to do that. Okay. Ooh man,
I mean,
technicals.
we probably should have talked about what we were going to talk about in the next segment.
Man, that's all right. Next little bit.
Shoot from the hip.
So we
shoot
yeah.
from the hip.
Oh man, I do want to bring this up because I love this, and this is one of the best things I've ever heard. I don't know. I don't even care. I keep talking about it because I love it, and it's the funniest thing for me.
Mhm.
All the people who are mad at Rage Against the Machine
Oh, yeah.
and System of a Down for being super political.
Yeah. And it's like, what machine were they raging against in your mind? Like, what do you think?
I'm just like, so my favorite like System song. Well, number one, my favorite phrase to throw around right now is "I won't do what you told me."
Yeah.
Just everything doesn't matter. Like, hey, can you move that box over there? I won't do what you told me. Like, it's my new thing in society.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing about. And was this you? I was talking to somebody about like,
I don't know.
is there any way to make like conservative art? You know, like, and I know that on the surface that sounds crazy, but you think about like how often you hear conservatives say things like, you know, you should stick to acting or do this or that because all of these artists tend to be kind of a little left leaning.
Generally.
But then they'll parade Ted Nugent on every single news circuit that they possibly can,
Yeah.
even though Ted Nugent sucks.
He has one good song.
Was Cat Scratch Fever? Yeah. Well, that's like his one-hit wonder.
Yeah, and by the
And
way,
he's made a whole career being on like Fox News. And all these
Pantera
conservative-
covered it better.
And so it's like, is there any like good conservative art? Like there's just I think
No.
that goes into deeper of like, can conservatives like, can you make art from the perspective like, if you think about it, like think about like Fern Gully or something. Like, what would the conservative version of that be? Would be the hero would be the pollution.
The hero would be the logging company.
Yeah, the logging company. It would be some poor logger
We maximized. One of our workers died on the job, but we can't find the body. He never existed. Like,
yeah, look, it wouldn't even be.
we just saved our company how many dollars per year?
Yeah, it wouldn't even be like the logging, like one of the workers. It would be like the CEO of the logging company.
That's what I mean. Like,
who's just like, like I'm trying to cut down this forest, but like all these fairies are stopping me.
that right there. We should do a series on that, like rewrite. I know years past we talked about rewriting Star Wars. We should rewrite every movie into a conservative spin.
But like how can you tell?
I think it's satire.
Like a meaningful story from a conservative perspective, and and I don't know. I mean, there's going to be people more creative than me who are going to be capable of doing that. But I mean, what, American Psycho? Like, but again, that's a movie that's a critique of it. It's not like, yeah, he's the protagonist, but he's a villain protagonist. He's not like.
This thing is just not cooperating with me today.
What happened? Did it not get it?
It stopped it again.
Oh no.
I don't know why that is. But anyways, back to you.
How much of it did it miss?
I think it dropped about a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. In the in between, just in case anybody, it sounds weird. We were just talking about rewriting conservative or movies with a conservative spin,
or if it was even really possible,
or if it's possible, right? Because I think at a certain point, like, it's just gonna sound like satire, like.
Yeah, because
like,
I mean,
is satire conservative by definition in that regard? Like
I guess you would have to like. There's a movie called Pride that's like a really lefty movie. It's based on a true story about coal miner union in England who received a lot of support from like the LGBT community, and they like went out and marched with them and things. And I'm like, so I'm thinking, like, in a conservative movie, what would it like? Would the gays be like the villain, where it'd be like a small town of like it would be like a small town of like conservative people, and then like the gays would move in and just start like having sex on like street corner, like just terrorizing the city with their gay agenda, and then like husbands would like leave the husbands would leave their wives to go like be gay, and it would just be like, what is this movie?
Yeah, what is happening? Like, yeah, nobody would go see that movie.
Like, I would see it because it sounds hilarious, but it's like, what, like, who is the villain in a conservative movie? Environmentalists stopping like the economy or whatever, like they would be the villains.
I think like maybe war movies or something, like.
Yeah, and then but like think of all like the great war movies, like the underlying theme is always that like war is hell, and that war is like a bad thing.
That's true.
Certain like propaganda films, I guess, would be.
On a interesting side note, are you do you like Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Are you a fan of the?
I've tried getting into it, but not. I think the main character, what was his name? Jake.
Yeah, Jake Peralta.
I think he's annoying, man.
Like
I don't
keep watching.
I don't like it. Like I don't like him. I mean I like Terry Crews.
Love Terry Crews.
And I like the captain.
Yeah.
Captain Holt. I think he's really funny, and I think that the main girl lead, not sure what her name is in the show.
Amy.
Is Amy? Yeah. She's funny. I don't like Jake Peralta, man.
Keep watching. Anyways, so they actually scrapped their 8th season. I don't know if you saw that or not.
I didn't.
With because of a lot of what's going on, they're rewriting a lot of the show.
Yeah, that show. Well, I mean, that show is prime propaganda. I mean, there's a ton of think pieces written on it, but yeah, they portray police as like these fun, lovable goofballs. And while like socially, I'm sure that they have like sort of a liberal slant to them,
right?
Systemically, they're perpetuating the idea that cops are like,
So I am kind of pumped in a way to see what they do. But in another vein, because I love the show, I'm kind of like, oh, don't change it. I want to keep.
But they even
like.
have had like episodes where they've had like arrest contests and stuff like that. Like stuff like that is always going to be a little weird.
Right.
But I mean, even something like Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
Or, Jack Saint has a really good video on Copaganda where it discusses like this like underlying notion that like cops are like these rugged heroes who sometimes have to break the rules a little bit to like get what they want.
Loose cannon on the edge who plays by his own rules.
There's a funny College Humor video about that where it's like he's like you killed all these people. He's like, yeah, but I got the perp. He's like, I'm gonna have to come down on you hard. You're getting 2 weeks paid vacation. And it's like, yeah, that's what happens in all of these instances where they like are caught like police misconduct.
Correct.
They get like, oh, you're under investigation, so here's a month off, a paid month off to like while we investigate and then investigate ourselves and find ourselves clear of any wrongdoing. So,
see, and that goes to, I think I touched on it a little bit in the last one, but we talked about like the reasonable officer standard. Drop some truth bombs here,
did we talk about that?
I don't know if
I don't
we did
remember
or not. But basically, long story short, is anytime they review anything police related, it is based on the idea of what would a reasonable officer do in that split second. And so like this is why like the officer who killed we just said his name in the Arizona hallway.
Oh, Daniel Shaver.
Thank you. That's why he got off. It's based on the reasonable assumption because they don't. But like, when it's ridiculous.
You watch that video. There is no reasonable assumption. There isn't.
That's what I'm saying.
And,
like when you look at the whole event as a whole, yeah, no, it's awful. But see, this is how
the officer had "you're fucked" written on the side of his gun. Like this guy was trying to fucking kill somebody.
That was ruled inadmissible in court because it would sway the jury, which is ridiculous in its own right.
Yeah, it should.
But I don't want to laugh. It's so bad. No, but this is the point though, and this is why it's so dumb that this is the standards that need to be reviewed. Like they use this standard like it's a catch-all. Like so, like if a person pulls a gun on a cop and shoots, and the cop shoots back, that's reasonably justified force, right?
Yeah,
theoretically. Now, when you have a case like him, who's, clearly doesn't have a gun, is crawling down the hallway, and you just shot him to shoot him, like, when you look at that whole scene from all 3 minutes of the video, yeah, that dude murdered that guy. Yeah. See, and this is what drives me crazy, because when the courts see it, they're like, and they also, to me, they pick and choose their scene because they look at like what frame did the officer make his decision. So they use the frame where he puts his hands on his pants to pretend like he's drawing a weapon, and that's the justification. So
yeah, but he was wearing like loose fitting shorts.
Yeah, I mean, it's very clear
like he didn't have a gun in his waistband. His pants were falling.
That's what got him off though, because they say that's when they go to court. This is what they look at.
But like, look at how. You want to talk about reasonable?
Yeah.
What were the requests he was making of this man? Like telling him, get on your knees, crawl to me. Like, just be like, hey, put your hands above your head, get on your knees, and turn around. I'll walk to you. Don't make this guy crawl to me.
The inverse is also true. Is what would have happened if he would have just said, hey, you come to me, and put his hands behind his back and just laid there, like. The officer was clear. If you don't listen to me, I'm going to shoot you.
I think he might have still shot him.
I 100% think so because the officer said 100%. If you don't listen to me, I will shoot you. Like, but then so that's what I'm saying. Like, it's silly to me that that's the standard they use because like when you look at the whole event, I remember now. We did touch on it a little bit when we were talking about the guy in the Wendy's parking lot.
Yeah,
because I got in, but then we got sidetracked as we do. But anyways, and that's the kind of standards that need to be reviewed. Like that.
But any attempt at some sort of like civilian oversight committee has been like fought tooth and nail against by police unions.
100%.
There's, and someone can like look this up, but it was in New York City. They tried to set up a police like citizen oversight committee. And the cop unions started like protesting, marching in the streets, shouting racial epithets, saying like blood and soil and shit. And I don't know, man. This is one of the reasons I don't think that police can be reformed. Like, you see all the ones that are resigning right now because they're like, if I don't have the ability to use deadly force, then I don't want the job.
I don't want to be a cop anymore.
And it's like, good, don't be.
Yeah, you shouldn't be one anyways. Like, you're jumpy. Like, I don't.
And then I don't know if you saw that video that I just shared today about that guy who was like trying to get money wired to him from Western Union.
Yeah, I did see that.
And the police like showed up. They grab him from behind. They're holding his arms like together. Like, one officer's talking to him, and the whole thing is from his body cam perspective. And the guy's being cooperative. He's giving his ID. He's explaining what he's doing there. And then another officer shows up, doesn't ask any questions, grabs the guy from behind. And then while he's being held and his arms are pinned to his sides, he's like, put your hands behind your back. He can't do it. And they're like, why are you not like following orders? And then they body slam him and break his arm. Yeah. And it's like I don't care if there needs to be a complete overhaul of the police. Like, fire that guy. Fire that guy. Yeah, immediately. 100%. Like, there's no investigation needed.
There shouldn't be.
Fire him. Fire everybody who has more than like a couple complaints against them. I don't care if you have to fire 80% of cops. Fire them.
The idea that you cannot use the entirety or summation of every event that led up to that point, like, is absurd to me.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be the standard. And that's why I brought that up. Because it's like, because that is, they can pick and choose their justification, and that is what the legal basis of their ability to use any level of force they want at any given time, realistically. That's where they get it from. It's like, and that just, so yeah, I get what you're saying when you say, like, maybe you can't be a total reform. And
I don't know if you can reform the police. Like, I don't know. Which is why
I agree in that regard.
In the podcast, I was like, I am for abolishing the police.
I agree, and that's goes back to negotiation. You're not gonna, if you don't even start from that point, you're not gonna get anything you want.
Yeah.
And
because they'll be all on board with reforming the police because it's so vague that it's like, oh yeah, give us more funding, we'll reform ourselves.
Yeah, we'll reform ourselves.
Yeah, and it's like, well, that's
oversight.
Yeah, that's not. And then Trump signing the like, I hate that man so much because he's like, I've talked to everybody, they all agreed it's time. It's time. And it's like, he just can't do a single thing without like jerking himself off.
Yeah.
He can't do anything.
I still
think he has no humility, this man.
No, none at all. I still think the greatest irony is that just by doing nothing and letting the government run itself, he could have went down as one of the better presidents of all time.
Trump?
Yeah. If he would have
if he did
nothing.
If he didn't remove dismantle the pandemic response team
absolutely
like Obama set up.
If he did absolutely nothing and just rode the Obama wave, good to go. Yeah. You'd have gone down as the best, and that's the singular greatest irony.
Because it was
in the modern age,
there was already like a jobs trajectory going on. Like,
there was uptick.
And then, there's like, it's funny because there was like a video of Obama literally like saying verbatim that like the biggest threat to national security right now is going to be a virus that we're not predicting.
Yeah.
So we need to set up like a pandemic response team. And then Trump like dismantles it.
Well, yeah. I mean, and it was done like after swine flu was like come and gone. Like, we'd already gone through a minor issue,
anyone who's like a listener of the podcast knows that I don't like Obama.
Yeah.
But like, it's so day and night.
Yeah.
It's so like,
it's one.
Like, one is actually like competent, Like, I think
this goes back a little bit into like we were talking about like harm reduction in the last one.
Oh yeah. I think Obama was better than Biden though. I think Obama was better than Biden will be. He's better than Hillary Clinton.
Yes.
Yeah, but like, okay.
I was just gonna say, from like a progressive standpoint, I know in the past I've said like I don't know if like there will still be a progressive movement with a Biden victory and a Pelosi speaker, which I think now. I think right now with everything going on, I think the progressive movement will be stronger than ever, regardless of who wins. And so in that when you follow that line of thinking, because I think all I do is think. That's all I have time to do in my work truck. I think to myself. But when you look at it like that, it kind of makes me think that defeating the conservatives and Republicans is the better option. Because then if they're in charge, not only are you fighting the neoliberals and the establishment and them, because they're never going to come to your side, period.
No.
Where if you beat them this way and they're no longer the majorities, then you only have to worry about fighting the moderates.
Yeah, but like, do you have to wonder what that does to like the spirit of the left? Yeah, I mean, when you have somebody like Donald Trump who's so egregious, then you have, a clear enemy.
Right.
But if you have someone who does like sort of incrementalism and does sort of tiny concessions,
right,
like bit by bit, is that enough to sort of quell some people who aren't necessarily radically left,
right,
but a little bit more left than, the right-wing Democrats are? And then you do something small to appease them, and then they go, okay, I guess we're fine.
Yeah, we made strides.
I mean, you look at how many people who really do look on the Obama presidency super fondly, when in actuality he was right of center, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
in retrospect, I will agree with that. If you'd asked me back then, but I mean, I've said it on the podcast before. I think in 2008 I voted for John McCain.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh,
but
man.
the reasoning was, this is going to sound insane. The thought process in my mind was when they talked about doing, like, as the Affordable Care Act became what it was, I made comments to people in that you cannot, quote, socialize a private industry and leave it up to the private companies, and that was a mistake, and that was the driving factor behind that move. Not voting would have been better.
I mean, ultimately, Obama won, so you have a clear conscience in that regard.
Yeah.
But like, man, I don't know how differently they would have governed McCain and Obama, but it was just the idea that Sarah Palin could be that close to the presidency was like, that's not
fair.
Of course, I was too young to vote in 2008 though, so I didn't.
Okay,
that
was my first presidential election I got to vote in.
Mine was
that was the idea behind that. I loved everything about Obama. It was just that, like, leaving it in the way that it was. I'm not I'm not a fan of private insurance, and that shouldn't have been the basis of what became the Affordable Care Act.
Sure. No. The Affordable Care Act is ultimately, it was the right-wing answer to our health care.
It's Romney Care. I've heard it referred to as Romney Care.
I guess that, we're never going to pull like right-wingers. I don't know what it's like to be one. Like, I don't know what their thought process is, but how they could think that they were justified in their actions, how they could be so, religious and yet completely fly in the face of any sort of
anything that would resemble what they pretend to stand for.
Like how you could spout the most like empty platitudes of like God being love and this and that, and then see that we lost how many kids in these migrant detention centers that we just don't know what happened to them, children. And you have like these like addle-brained conservative morons like QAnon folk who went to actually shoot up a pizza place because of Pizzagate. Like, one guy actually shot it because they think that there's some sort of child sex ring being operated from it. Meanwhile, there's documented evidence that ICE is sexually assaulting children at the detention centers. I think it was 14,000 last I checked that have come forward and said that ICE has sexually assaulted them. There is an actual child sex ring. There's children locked in cages who are being assaulted by ICE, and they don't even just not care. They actively support it.
Yeah, and then there's Epstein. Everything with Epstein.
Yeah, where it's like, They constantly like to talk about how it's like the Clintons, but he was a good friend to Trump too. Like, this idea that we're going to be playing this partisan shit, I don't care. I think Clinton's a rapist. I do. I think arrest him. I don't care. But to ignore Trump, who also is a pedophile.
Here's the thing. This is what really bums me out, and I think this may be more to the root of, aside from the fact that it's super hard for Bernie. this is one of the things that really bums me out, is because the Democratic Party, as it stands, had a really good opportunity to show that it was able to use self-inflection and really prove that they were better than the other side, and then didn't.
And then went with the closest approximation to the other side. Every complaint that you could levy at Trump can be levied at Biden to a smaller extent. Like, but they're still bad. Like, is Trump a racist? For sure. Mm-hmm. But does Obama does Biden have a very checkered past when it comes to race? Yes, he does. Like, there's the whole busing thing. There was the crime bill.
His future VP will eventually agree with him on it.
Yeah, there was a lot of slips where he's like, poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
Yeah. Or
saying like, you're not black if you don't vote for me. It's just sort of like, I don't know if that's a race thing.
It's not.
But he's also not great on race.
No.
Trump is a rapist and a pedophile. Obama, or I keep trying to say Obama, Biden, also is a little bit rapey.
Some very, very, very questionable videos you can look up online.
Of him Biden touching children, smelling children. And then, Tara Reid coming forward with her accusation. So you could have, you could have picked anybody but Biden. We could have picked anybody. And then
anybody.
But it's a club. It's a club, and he's paid his dues the longest, so it was his turn.
Right,
is essentially what it was.
Well, and they pushed him forward as to be VP too. I mean, I hate to use that term. They. That's
no. It was Obama ran a very populist left campaign, and in order to appease his sort of corporate donors. He picked Joe Biden as kind of like a wink and a nod of like, hey guys, don't worry. Like this is all for show.
Right.
There's a really good website called like What Has Obama Done Lately? And I don't know if it's still up and running. It was during his presidency it was made, but it did have like a lot of good things that Obama actually did get done. I think that we like to focus on sort of like these keynote issues and say that his whole presidency was bad because of it, but he's done a few good things, but I think overall, he's done a lot of bad things. And we look at sort of Black Lives Matter was formed during Obama's presidency. Police brutality was a problem during Obama's presidency. I think that if Obama was president, I think George Floyd still would have got murdered.
Yeah.
I think if Hillary Clinton was president, that it still would have happened.
Yep.
If Joe Biden was president, it still would have happened. This problem is not Donald Trump.
Right. It's not establishment. I mean, it's establishment, but
it's not partisan. They disagree on a lot of surface level things, but ultimately, both parties are pretty.
Well, it goes back to what you said earlier too about like if when people say all lives matter and then they're mad that people don't protest white deaths, get out and protest. Like by saying that, you're admitting that police brutality is basically a problem. Like get out and protest.
Yeah.
If it bothers you.
All lives matter. That's the thing, is that Black Lives Matter is a movement.
Correct.
You have people who are organizing protests. They're going out there. They're setting up, funds. They're promoting politicians. Mm-hmm. It's a whole movement.
Correct.
All Lives Matter is just a hollow slogan that people shout.
Yeah.
To discredit Black Lives Matter. If you wanted to start an All Lives Matter movement, I'll be there, bro. If you wanted to start a protest about some sort of horrible human rights violation, count me in. Mm-hmm. Like if you wanted to start protesting like the migrant detention centers, I'm there. You want to start protesting for Palestinian rights, like I'll be there. If you want to say all lives matter, let's do it. You should be at every single one of these police brutality protests, because if their lives mattered, as you say that all lives do, then be there. You would be there.
You would be there first thing. But no, instead.
But what it is code for white lives matter.
Correct.
Like that's really what the code is.
This is one of my new favorite hobbies too, is finding like basically white supremacists with counter protest signs that are misspelled.
Mm-hmm.
It's my new favorite thing. Like I saw a video of a guy trying to spray paint "White Lives Matter" onto
spelled white like Game of Thrones.
WIGHT.
Yeah.
Or one guy had a sign that was like, "You guys need a Brian."
Yeah. There was the one that was like, "Whites have superior genes," but it was like the pants.
Jeans, yeah.
You know, but like
there needs to be more of those. Not to make
but there's
light
a
of
whole
the situation, but
you know, but they have a whole voter base to themselves too,
right?
Though, like they're not this idea that like is perpetuated in media and movies and things that racists are like overt people that just like shout the N-word and they're just horrible people like that nobody likes and they're just disgusting fucking like relics of the past that exist in these like fringes where like they have no friends and they're just like anytime a racist appears in a movie, that's all they are is their
defining trait
is they're a racist and they're everything bad. But you know what? Racists have friends. Racists have barbecues. Like racists, you know, like are your neighbors and things like that. They're not just like these like caricatures of racism. So when we discuss sort of white supremacy and things like that, like it's going to be people you know.
Yeah.
Well,
they, the old phrase is they turned in their robes and wear polos now or something like that. Like,
yeah. And you know, that's another idea is that racists are all these like dumb rednecks, you know, like these idiot like rednecks that live out in the boonies where it's like, you know, that George Zimmerman sold the gun that he used to kill Trayvon Martin for $250,000. There ain't no dumb rednecks spending $250,000 on a gun. Like these are wealthy people. These are powerful people. Racists exist in powerful positions in all spheres of influence in life. And in fact, I would say that a lot of some of the most powerful people in the most powerful positions are racist. That's why when we talk about systemic racism, we can't just be like, you know, it's illegal to discriminate against someone on race, so there is no systemic racism. It's like if stopping things was as easy as putting it into law, then there would be no crime ever.
Yeah.
You know, like
there has to be an educational thing. There has to be an
especially
component to it.
In sort of like right to work states and things like that. Like, yeah, it's illegal to fire someone for their race or their sexual orientation, but if you live in an at-will employment state or a right to work state, they can fire you for anything and then, you know, say that it was for, you showed up late one day, so you're fired. And it's like, in actuality, I fired you, because you're black or because you're gay.
Because you wore Black Lives Matter masks to work.
So it's like, I don't know.
That kind of goes into what I'm going to get into here in the next segment, because I wanted to just... Did it again. That's a good thing it stopped right there. I don't understand that. I did it again. Oh my god. Interesting.
Facing little technical difficulties.
Yeah.
At the moment.
We actually paused at a good time for the segment, for segment purposes, but you know, this is just silly. I don't understand why it keeps doing that.
How much of it did it cut out earlier, too, though?
I'm going to have to go back and listen to it. It was that much? Because I caught it. Like, it happened while I was switching tabs.
Okay.
Because I would switch tabs to check the stream, and then I came back to the Anchor app. And then I noticed it was stopped, and it went to upload. So I don't think we lost maybe about 10 seconds. I think. I'm going to have to listen to it, but... Why is it doing that? Oh, my God. It's going to piss me off. Hold on, sorry. Because it did this weird thing where it recorded like 2 minutes. So it might not have missed anything. But then it stopped again. That's the one we just did right now.
Okay.
I think. I hope. No, that's the one we just did right now. That's the...
Oh, hey. What's up? I don't know. We have a few viewers. What's going on, guys? We're having some technical difficulties as far as recording the podcast goes. But if you guys wanted to get into the chat...
May have to edit this one and do it the other way.
What do you mean?
Well, fuck.
Like just rip it from the...
I might have to do that. I think.
But even the stream cut out too at one point.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at this, and that's not a good sign.
Oh, that they're all 59 seconds.
Yeah. It says it was recording though the whole time. Weird.
Oh
Well, dang. May have to go back to the old solution. I'm gonna try this one more time just for shits and giggles before we go, because I want to get this.
We good?
I hope so. Whew. All right. Never an easy day in the life of a podcaster. Apparently.
And this was a good episode too, I feel.
I did too. Yeah. So I'll probably end up ripping it the other way.
Yeah, but then you're gonna have to edit the edit the breaks out.
It may be a little late on the release on this one.
Yeah. And then also the stream cut out for a second too, so I don't know.
Well, the stream itself cutting out, we didn't miss a whole lot.
You're gonna have to cobble them together.
Well, that's actually why I like doing them in the segments, because like then I can keep it more focused on task and boom, 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 boom. But anyways, so this goes on. You're talking about like right to work. This is something I wanted to rant about a little bit, because I workers' rights and being like people, being paid fairly, fair wages and all that jazz has always been one of the most important things to me. Like, I've always been about the workers and what have you. Why is it in our country, like, we put so much value on people's personal, like, value as a person, on their ability to work? It's more than we can put down in a 30-minute segment, but
it's because we view things through the lens of capitalism. I mean, and I know that that's always like my answer to everything. But in actuality, if you are incapable of work, whether physically or mentally, or, you're just too old, you are not providing any monetary value to anybody. And we have conflated human value with your ability to produce profit. That's the commodification of the human spirit, man. Okay. I've explained this before. Yeah. I don't even know if I've explained it on the podcast. Probably not. This, like, all of these things that that are pervasive in our culture, rise and grind, time is money, picking up overtime shifts, sacrificing, your free time for your work, all of these are just, it's so, I don't know. I knew a guy who, I was working in a warehouse, and we worked 12-hour shifts, and he would work the night shift with me, and then he would work his weekends too. He would pick up overtime. And it's like, dude, is that your life, man? Yeah. Like, that's your whole life.
Well, that's where people get trapped in the cycle. Eat, sleep, shit, work. And it's like, which is what I do 5 days a week.
But there's so much more to life. But it's like, you feel guilty if you get a coloring book, and start, like, spend a couple of hours just doing something meaningless.
So that's why I play guitar. Not very good, but I still play it. Yeah.
But it's like, you get this feeling of guilt when you do something that there's no way to monetize.
Right. So like, I feel. So I had some feelings about all this, because I was talking to a coworker of mine. We were talking about our pay, because where I work, our pay structure is goofy, and it would take me literally 20 minutes to explain it. So long story short, they give us a number. We hit that number, we get 100% of our salary, and it goes up or down based on what we do. Mm-hmm. So prior, for our sales, we would just get commission, right? And I said, I don't think any of us should get less than X percentage. The number doesn't really matter in this story, just X percentage, and I think that's fair. Nobody should get less. Doesn't matter what size of a territory you manage. And they said, well, why would you want that much? And I'm like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, like, you would be okay with X percentage, right? And it was just lower. And I was like, I mean, yes, but when you say that, to me, what you're actually doing is undervaluing number one, yourself as a worker. And you're also undercutting me as a worker by saying I will work for less. And then it got to me thinking how the labor culture, I guess, in the United States really has all workers trapped in like a prisoner's dilemma.
I mean, that's the whole like scab thing when it comes to like unions and people undercutting them, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, prisoner's dilemma of like
If all banded together, we would be much stronger.
Yeah.
If we cheat somebody else and undercut, you come out ahead because you've accepted the job, I guess.
But you ultimately came out below.
But you come out worse, yeah. I forget the 3 tenets of the prisoner's dilemma. If they don't cooperate, they all lose.
Yeah, the prisoner's dilemma
If they
is
do cooperate, which is actually the best outcome, they win, but they don't cooperate because they don't trust each other. And that's
the prisoner's dilemma, for those of you who don't know, is a robbery happens and 2 people are caught. However, they don't have any of the evidence on them. But they need to get a confession in order to convict. So they offer both of the prisoners a deal where if you rat on your partner, you get off scot-free, they'll get 10 years. And whoever does it first is the one who gets 10 years. Now, if they both do it, then like if they both rat on the other one, then they both get 5 years or something like that. And if neither of them rat on each other, they get 2 years.
Let me see. I'm going to try to find this a broken
At least that's my understanding of it.
Yeah. Okay, so this is on Investopedia. You guys can look this up if you don't want to hear me jot this out. But the classic prisoner's dilemma goes like this. 2 members of a gang of bank robbers, Dave and Henry, have been arrested and are being interrogated in separate rooms. That's important. The authorities have no witnesses and can only prove the case if at least one of them betrays their accomplice and testifies on the crime. Each robber is faced with the choice to cooperate with his accomplice or remain silent, or to defect from the game and testify for prosecution. If they both cooperate and remain silent, the authorities will only be able to convict them on the lesser charge of loitering, which means 1 year in jail for each. If one testifies and the other does not, then the one who testifies will go free and the other will get 3 years. However, if both testify against each other, each will get 2 years in jail for being partly responsible for the robbery. So, yeah, by cooperating is the best outcome, but by turning on each other is the worst outcome, effectively.
But if you are out for yourself, it is the best outcome for you. If the other person,
So when you have that was like what that said to me. So I'm sitting here like, okay, so you're basically saying you're willing to undercut me, which is detrimental to both of us in the long run because you're not going to get what I mean realistically you're worth, at least in my opinion, because you've already undercut yourself. And that goes back to this is all about negotiation. I'm going to title this one negotiation.
But that's it's kind of the theme a little bit. But yeah, that's ultimately what the establishment fears is a united working class. That's why they're constantly trying to create divisions in unity. That's why they union bust. That's why they can fire you for even discussing the possibility of unionizing.
Oh yeah, which is illegal, but they still do it anyways.
Workers don't have bargaining power on their own because
Correct.
there are people out there looking for work. And if you solely tried to go in and ask for better conditions or more money by yourself, they'll replace you. If the entire workforce got on board, then they couldn't replace you because who would they replace you with?
Like I was talking to, like in our company, we have 3 main groups of people. We have the front line, which is what I'm on. There's the truck drivers and then the plant workers. And then, of course, there's management above all of it. Anyways, that doesn't matter. So, the plant workers are unionized, and they hate them because of that. But then the other one, too, I was talking to one of the truck drivers, and I said, I was like, you guys should really unionize. I mean, you've said your mileage rate isn't up to market and all that jazz because they get paid X cents per mile to drive. And I was like, you guys should unionize. I was like, you want to really hurt them? I was like, you organize your own. I was like, because if you guys unionize, they can't replace you guys. Us on the front line, any Joe can come and do what I do. But, you guys have a skill.
But that also comes down to unionizing for quote-unquote unskilled labor is the more specialized you have in your skill, the more bargaining power you have too. So working class, even down to like, and I mean almost especially to like service industry jobs or jobs that are considered unskilled, unions would benefit them the most, you know?
Right. Yeah, and they absolutely should, because like I've often said, like if you've never worked a cashier job, gas station, whatever, like them people need a union bad.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to the reason I brought up a lot of this other stuff. Sorry, I'm just rambling at this point in time. But like I was just thinking about it, and I was like, why do we work so many more hours than most developed nations for
Than any.
A report came out that said I think we were last in developed nations in labor relations.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Yeah. And I was just like, we got nations going to 4-day work weeks. I know we talked about nations that have their post-corona plans don't even involve the economy. They're like, we're just going to make our lives better for everybody. Like,
yeah.
And then I'm just like, I was like, how do you get people to see that? Because
yeah. So,
like, I blew a guy's mind the other day because he makes good money. He's a welder. He enjoys a comfortable standard of living. And he just said, I'm middle class. And I said, no, you're not.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And I had to explain to him. I was like, this is why you're not middle class and why there is no more middle class.
Yeah. So this is going to, and this is like a statistic that I don't want like sandwiched at the very end of this, so I'll probably bring it up in other streams. But
sorry.
No, it's all right. If you evenly distributed everything, then everybody would make $350,000 a year.
I think I know what you're talking about. I think it's actually higher now. I think it's 700.
700,000
a
year. Yeah, that'd be nuts. And then when you think about how I think it's 50% of the labor force makes less than $60,000 a year. And I know that the median income where we live is closer to $30,000 a year. So even this idea,
even 356,000 is fine too.
Yeah,
I'm good
and that's not even necessarily what I'm arguing for.
Yeah,
but that also includes children, by the way. So if you had a family of 4, for example, would be millionaires.
The one I read might have been adults only.
Go
ahead, keep going.
Yeah, no, the one I have includes children as well. So family of 4, which you can look at the idea of like a homemaker, for example, being like a stay-at-home parent, is has no economic value. Like a person choosing to do that won't make any money. All of these problems stack on top of each other. The increase in housing prices, the increase in higher education, any idea of sort of class mobility, bad trade deals that outsource our manufacturing jobs, things like that. And then, couple that with the idea that there are no more single income households. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest indicators of whether or not someone will be, make good decisions later in life is depending on how they were raised, especially when you include the fact that like childcare costs, I think on average $12,000 a year, something like that.
I can believe that.
So, you take somebody who's a single parent or somebody who's, and working a minimum wage job, you're making, I think it's like what, $17,000 a year if you're working at the federal minimum wage level, something like that.
Yeah, 7.25, right?
And then assuming that you have to pay for your child care, which is, like I said, I think $12,000. Like, what does somebody do in that situation? Where is their ability to create a better life? We have this notion of like freedom, but what that means is we have people's right to greed. We have people's right to hoard as much wealth as they want, and they have no obligation to make the world a better place at large. And it's like money is not generated in a vacuum. We are also interconnected in ways that you couldn't even think about.
Right.
Like, if you're stuck in traffic, every single person that's in that line has their own lives and their own like contributions. So like one of them might work at a sandwich shop, and he serves a sandwich to a guy that like fixes the tire of your boss. Like it's all like 6 degrees of separation with everybody. We're all in this together, and this idea that like Jeff Bezos is more deserving of luxury than any other human being, because he came up with the novel concept of selling things on the internet, where it's
that's why I always love this, because people are like, I got into an argument with somebody about like Bernie Sanders one time, because I said I just don't think that billionaire people, I don't think people should make a ton of money off of no effort of their own, right?
Sure.
So their reply was, that's what Bernie wants for everybody. And I was like, well, number one, how's that a bad thing? Number two, no. I was like, take Donald Trump, for instance. And they're like, well, he's self-made, real estate, blah, blah, blah. And I go, no. I was like, his dad funneled $400 million to him when he was 8 illegally. And
okay.
I was just saying he still managed to lose it all 4 times over, but
it also comes down to, people like to point out that like a lot of people don't inherit like their millions or whatever.
Right.
It's not literally your parents die and they leave you a bunch of money. Like that's not what generational wealth means. It means you were raised in an entirely different culture than a poor person. So while you might not get like, millions of dollars on your parents' death, but Jeff Bezos, his parents invested $250,000 into Amazon when he was first starting out. A poor kid whose parents make, a combined income of like $60,000. If he came up with the same idea, he would have no way of capitalizing on it. And like, make no mistake, it's not he didn't reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, it wasn't his fault.
There's
no opportunity to pursue. I got into this one a little bit too, because I was talking to somebody about universal income and why I support it in general, and that was kind of the reply too. And this is what got me on the idea of like why we attach this like idea of labor to like personal value, because their immediate reply was, well, lazy people will stop working. And I was like, aside from the studies that show that's not true, I was like, no, it gives people more freedom to pursue what they want to pursue.
Yeah.
I was like, and how's that a bad thing?
I saw a study, and I couldn't. We should really cite our sources sometimes.
I know,
but it said something.
That's the problem with doing them on the fly and not
something to the
them.
effect of like, I think it was like 70% of people are bad at their jobs.
Yeah,
it was something like that. And it's because we have so many people who are just dispassionate about what they do. They don't care. They're doing as little as they can to not get fired,
Right. Well, there's a famous economic principle, which is one of my favorite thing. I got to figure out what it's called. I'm pretty sure it's the Philip principle. Mm-hmm. Could be Jeffrey. I'm not 100% sure. But anyways, the basic premise of this is that you have a company. Company grows over time, and eventually positions are created that need to be filled. Everybody in that company will eventually be promoted to a position of which they're qualified to run. So whether that's middle management, it doesn't matter. So people get promoted. Now over time, these people want more and they get promoted higher, but at that point they're no longer qualified to operate their company in those positions. And over time, your company eventually gets populated by what are known as Phillips, people unqualified to run those positions. Mm-hmm. And that's like, so over time your companies fail because you're no longer qualified to operate your company.
Yeah. I mean, I think what it comes down to is we have to have an entire reinvention of our culture, man.
Yeah. Work culture.
Because that idea of the Phillips thing, you have all these people who just want more all the time. Mm-hmm. And, we have studies that show that money has diminishing returns, like on the happiness that provides after only like $70,000, something like that.
I think it's 100.
I I think it's 70,000. But
the point is, people want
that,
to be comfortable, and that's where. Like,
but yeah, it's this greed, man.
Yeah,
it's this like we need more. We need like nobody needs a mansion.
no,
nobody needs 50 sports cars. Nobody
Nope.
needs a private like helicopter.
in the words of Spider-Man and Family Guy, everybody gets one.
Yeah, it's just like it's all this like bullshit status symbols, man.
Like, I just want people to kind of like understand, like, you're being like, you can have more, like, to a point. Everybody wants a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I get that.
Yeah.
And then to me, it's more like quit like devaluing yourself as a worker and like know your intrinsic wealth as a human being.
And especially to like there's a Facebook group called Poor People Who Simp for Capitalism, where it's like I don't know, you have people who make 15, 16 an hour, people who are not wealthy by any means,
Right.
who argue against a $15 minimum wage, where it's like you don't understand that like that minimum wage is what sets the bar for like what they can get away with.
Right.
If it's at $7.25, then they can offer somebody a job at $10 an hour and be like, look how well we're paying you. If minimum wage is at 15 and you are like a welder or somebody with a trade, they're going to be forced to pay you more than minimum wage. Like, so a higher minimum wage would be beneficial to everybody.
My favorite is when they throw out the old argument, and my favorite one is like, oh, Switzerland doesn't have a minimum wage.
You know what they do have? They have a powerful collective bargaining.
They negotiate. Welders also make is $60 an hour.
They negotiate their own wages every 2 years. If you want that, then I am 100% in favor of something like that.
Yeah.
But we throw the word socialism around a lot. The socialism doesn't. Now it does, like colloquially, it means whenever the government does like something, that's social. That's socialism. Socialism is actually when the workers control the means of production, and by that metric, unions are the most socialist thing you can have. Mm-hmm. So what
unions and worker co-ops?
Yeah, what Sweden has is way more socialism than socialized healthcare is. Like having collective bargaining where you negotiate your own wages every couple of years is way more socialism than roads.
How dare you?
So yeah, if you want to bring up that they have no minimum wage, we can move to that. I am more in favor of that. There's another study that I actually just looked up today because somebody was arguing about how like America is the greatest country in the world and we have the most opportunity for mobility between classes, and I was like, I don't know where you got that from. So I looked it up, and there is like actually like an index that ranks countries by that. America's like 26th.
Mm-hmm. You know what's sick is that I'm trying to look up some stats about Sweden. Just I'm curious to see what the scoop is and how it compares. The thing is we could be. We absolutely could be if people would just understand. And that
we are the richest nation in the world.
It's that bitter irony. Let's see here. Let's say average Swedish salary. I'm just curious. Software developer, the equivalent of $58,000. Engineer, $55,000. It's a little lower on that one. IT manager, $80,000. Regular manager, I don't know what that means, but $85,000. Yeah, let's see. Your average salaries in Stockholm, $68,000. So that sounds low, but you also have to remember they enjoy a higher standard of living because they have free healthcare.
The idea is not
the dollar
average
itself doesn't matter. It's the fact that what they get for it.
If you took like me and Jeff Bezos, like our average earnings would be $50 billion. Doesn't mean that I make $50 billion.
That's a fair point. There's so many more metrics to decide by. Like, what else do they get in return?
Yeah.
Oh, I know 6 weeks of vacation every year.
Free childcare, free healthcare,
a year off if you have a child,
stipend for college,
free college. Actually. So it's just that trade off, and it just it was just something I thought we.
But
could get
why
into.
wouldn't you? If your needs were taken care of, then it wouldn't matter if you made,
This
a
or
certain
that,
amount of money.
It takes
like
the emphasis off of kind of that corporate greed or just greed in
well,
general. What
the
you're
idea
talking
is though that you have certain things that you have to pay for. So while you get that money to you don't really have a choice in paying for like a place to live. You don't really have a choice in paying for a medical emergency. You don't really have a choice in paying for your food. So yeah, if you made, $60,000, but you're paying, you break your arm and have to pay $30,000, then you didn't really make $60,000.
right?
Or if you're
Or if
spending
you pay $12,000 in premiums
Yeah.
to a company that doesn't do anything for you.
or you have to pay, $12,000 for childcare, then you didn't really make that $12,000 because you didn't really have a choice to you couldn't just leave your kid at home alone.
Mm-hmm.
You had to go to childcare, so you didn't really make that money. Just because you see it on your check doesn't mean that it's your money to do with whatever you want. So I don't know. I think, are we ready to call it here?
Yeah, I think that's a good stopping point. Just some good. We never plan anything, which is a big problem of mine in life.
Yeah.
But just some
kinda wing it.
ramblings. As always. It's been a fun one. Any questions? Leave them in the Leave them in
I've
the
been
chat.
cutting down on my cursing, so
Yeah.
I think that was I slipped a few in, but I did
That's what's
I
gonna
did
get
I did
us
as
on
good.
the public access.
I did as good as I could.
That's right. Well, it's been a fun one, guys. You guys have a good night.
Gotta go to
Enjoy.
Arby's.
Yeah, eat fresh. I know. I'm thinking.
That's Subway. Dude.
What?
Arby's is we got the meats.
I don't think it's that either.
It
I thought
is,
it's
yeah.
I'm thinking Arby's.
Arby's is we have the meats.
We got the meats.
Yeah,
well.
we have the meats or whatever. I'm the only person that eats Arby's.
I used to like it a lot, but it tears me up.
Get a roast
All right.
beef.
Hey, we'll see you later, guys.
See you later. This is not sponsored.
No. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck happened with this thing here. That kind of pissed me off. I was like, oh, this is so easy. And then it didn't. Yeah, I'm going to have to rip the audio. I only got 2 minutes worth of I got our first segment, nothing in our second segment other than 2 minutes worth. Yeah, that's literally only a minute long. What the That's loud. What the fuck, man? That pisses me off.
Yeah, it kind of blows.
Fuck. I'll have to pull that shit then. Wow, I hate my nasally ass voice. What is that where they clean out your sinuses so you never have allergies again? What is that? The celebrities get it. I want that.
I have no idea.
Is it rhinoplasty?